Hello, friends. Welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Another set of great stories await you in today's video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Security regulations you wrote apply to you too. This was my first security gig right out of the military. Good starter job for security work. It was access control at a medium-sized aircraft engine factory. Friend of mine worked HR there, but also held the title as head of security, so he offered me a job and I accepted. One of the biggest rules were ID checks. Apparently a few years prior, a couple of people had gotten in with photocopied IDs, so after that we had to physically check the ID was plastic. We did this by touching it. Now do access control enough and you start to memorize people. We didn't check those IDs by touching them because we knew them, and if they'd been fired, we would have gotten a notice. Well, that angered the head of HR, so she set some new rules. She wasn't the head of security, but security fell under HR, so she kind of was. All IDs must be checked, no exceptions. No non-employee is allowed through the gate without a notice signed by her or the head of security and has to be submitted 12 hours prior to their entry, like for people scheduled for interviews. Visitor badges assigned without prior approval can only be done for normal delivers, like the post office or FedEx. Anyone who violates it will be reported by security to HR for a security violation. That was fine and dandy. We really didn't care. Everything went smooth for about a month until that one day, here she comes to the gate, but she isn't driving. Her husband is. It's raining, and I mean flood-level raining. I ask her husband for his ID, and he says he didn't have one. She saw where this was going and tried to stop me. He was only there to take her in because it was raining, and she didn't want to walk from her car to the building and ruin her outfit. That's when I threw the rules back at her. I didn't have a security notice for him, so I couldn't assign a badge and couldn't let him in. She tried but it's only 100 yards, which again I reminded her of the rule she set down. She actually said, "Well, I'm your boss." Technically, she wasn't. "We're going in anyways," which I replied, again, her rule that any breaches of policy must be reported as a security violation. So there she is, dressed to the nines, forced to walk without a jacket to the building 100 yards in the rain to get to her office. Why didn't we lend her a security rain jacket, you ask? Because she said there wasn't enough money in the security budget to buy them. Later that day, she modified the rules that on drop-offs, security has full discretion to allow someone entry for that purpose. We also got our 2 rain jackets 2 weeks later, and she never bothered security again. And our next story. Want to apply malicious compliance that affects me? I'm cool with that, but it's a two-way street. I co-own a small company that mostly does subcontract work for a big industry leader software/hardware company. Let's call it Big Corp. I'm a certified implementation specialist for their point-of-sale touchscreen products focused to a very specific market. I've been doing this for 11 years now. These POS systems are very complicated to implement and configure, so it requires training and years of experience to do our work properly. Once you do it right, though, the solutions are easy to use/maintain by the final customer. Basically, a final customer buys the POS solution from the Big Corp, and Big Corp either assigns one of their employees or hire one of us to travel to the final customer premises, install the software and hardware, train the staff, and go live with the new system. There's also work that can be done remotely. I'll say I do 70% on-site and 30% remote work. Being commissioned to do contract work involves paperwork, and before start working, Big Corp policy states we need to receive a formal purchase order detailing the maximum hours or days to be billed to the project. All this travel affects a person's life, family, marriage, etc. As contractors, we can decide which jobs we're going to take, so we can spend a few days home, hopefully doing remote work, in between month-long trips. Big Corp employees often don't have that luxury and usually arrive one day from a month-long implementation, only to leave for a new assignment 2 or 3 days later. This results in Big Corp having a huge employee turnover rate and heavily depend on contractors like us. It also means that their contractors in general, and us in particular, have a whole lot of more experience than their own employees. BigCorp was acquired by a bigger company 2 years ago. Let's call it Bigger Corp, and they instituted a series of changes that had hurt us both contractors and final customers. Let me list some changes relevant for this story. BigCorp has offices in several countries and used to have support staff on each branch. At the time of the merger, Bigger Corp had a global customer support system in place with thousands of support technicians employed around the globe. So they decide to basically fire all support staff from BigCorp and train their support staff on the new products, ignoring the fact that it takes years of experience to get really good working with these POS systems. This, of course, had turned customer support into a nightmare. Bigger Corp wants BigCorp to make full use of their employees first and start hiring contractors after all employees are already assigned to implementations. Bigger Corp is absolutely against BigCorp paying contractors for non-billable work. If work cannot be billed to the final customer, the contractor cannot bill it to BigCorp. Sorry for the long preamble. On to the story. A big customer, very famous brand, lots of stores throughout the country, request to install the latest version of the software they've already been using for years. Our main contact from that company is a former employee of BigCorp, so she's someone I've worked with, knows how things work in BigCorp, and even had a few beers with several times. She knows about all I've explained before. They have a lot of custom stuff, particular to them, working with their system, so she knows she needs someone with knowledge to do this. Both her and my contact in Big Company know that there's no one better than either me or my business partner, unavailable, assigned to other projects, to do this job. Stage 1 is setting up a testing lab for them, a central server, and 2 store servers. Of course, I run into several issues, very complicated to solve. For those of you on IT, solutions often implied using the SQL tool to manipulate database tables directly, which a normal specialist should never do. One other instance. The very latest software version was installed, but made some of their custom scripts run very slow, so I had to revert their lab servers to the next to last version. All this troubleshooting required tedious trial and error. At some point during all this process, I suggested to her that we should involve BigCorp's support department as I was getting frustrated and not solving a couple of big issues. She cried to me there was no way they could help with this, and even if they did, it would take them months of scalation and calls and emails. I knew she was right, so I got back into it and eventually detected and solved the problems. So far, I've managed to get everything working, but of course this has taken me time, let's say 9 days of work instead of the original 3 days quoted. I took a risk there, and that's on me, because the purchase order for this project only allotted 3 workdays, but I did it because I knew this woman for 10 years. My good friend praised my work and thanked me for keeping them on schedule, as a similar project was executed last year for another branch of the customer's corporation by a BigCorp employee, and it took them more than a month, and the intervention of several specialists to get everything to work. Then the time came for me to ask customer to sign off on the project. Now, this lady is basically saying that they'll happily pay for 5 days, the original 3 plus 2, working on issues caused by them and their stuff, but is refusing to pay for the remaining 4 as these can be blamed on application defects. So I called her and we basically had this exchange. Me: I get where you're coming from. I do. You're right that these issues were not provoked by you, but you know that they were not provoked by me either. And you asked specifically for me and my knowledge, knowing from previous experience that I had the best chance of getting your work done on schedule. Her: I don't care. These are issues with the software. I work for customer now, and I have to protect their interests, not BigCorp's, so I'm not paying for it. Me: but you understand this means I'll not get paid for my work, as there's no way I can send BigCorp an invoice for non-billable work. Not my problem. That's between you and Big Company. Well, okay, but then please understand that I have to protect my interests too, so I cannot keep working for you if I cannot bill these days, and after you pay for those days, all future job requests must be formal, and I won't touch anything until I receive a purchase order, a process you know takes days. Fine. Thing is, this project is halfway done. They were still testing, and at some point I was scheduled to travel there to do the on-site implementation stage on 2 or 3 of their stores so they can continue with the rest. As expected, they ran into more issues, This lady keeps CCing me in the emails, but I just ignore them. As of now, their project has been stopped for 2 weeks because nobody has been able to solve the new issues. My contact in Big Corp has asked me to forego the disputed 4 days, but at the end, she agrees with my stance. Customer has now sent a proposed schedule for me to travel there next month to do the on-site work. Screw them. I've already accepted different projects that will keep me occupied up to late October. In practice, this means I won't be attending any emergency. POs take usually a work week of paperwork to be issued. Probably I just won't do any more work for them. Another specialist, an employee of course, was finally able to solve the remaining issue as I predicted, and they can move forward with the project now, which I couldn't take even if I wanted, as I'm already committed to other customers. And our last story. Stuck-up millionaire who owes the whole town money gets what's coming. This story doesn't involve me in any way. It's about the guy who used to own my parents' property. Let's call him Greg. All you need to know about Greg is that he's a stuck-up millionaire who thinks he's so perfect and spiritual, but he never pays anyone, whether he gets a loan from the bank, a friend, or someone did work for him. Like, seriously, I could write so many stories about this guy on Reddit from what people have told me, so please let me know if you'd like more about him. Anyway, on to the revenge. One of the people Greg owed money to was an earth-moving company. 6 months went by and he didn't pay them, so they drove a truck full of dirt and gravel to his house and dumped it onto his driveway so that no one could get in or out. They then proceeded to call all the other earth-moving companies in the area, telling them not to go over there, so that the only way anyone could get in or out was if he paid them, and of course, they made him pay everything he owed them before they moved it. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.